Hey everyone, good evening. So, in this evening session, we're continuing with the May June 2025 past paper. Now, for one part B, they gave us a worded problem that is dealing with consumer arithmetic. Now, we always get a consumer arithmetic question. We get them mainly in the multiple choice. However, we normally get one or two in the paper two. So you read your question carefully and you pull out the important facts. Miranda earned $8,316 per month. She spends 4/7 of her earnings on utility bills, food, and personal items, and saves the remainder. It says, what percentage of her monthly salary does she save? All right. So first things first, in a question like this, just pull out your important facts first, right? So you want to focus on the important facts. So we know that our salary, our full salary, you gotta write like too much. It's just to make sure that we could see and identify what is important to us. So her salary is $8,316. Fraction spent is 4/7. Right? So they said 4/7 of her salary was spent on utility bills, food, and so on. The rest was saved. Right? So the rest of it was saved. So if she spent 4/7 and the whole would have been represented by 7 out of 7, then the remainder saved will be the whole, which is represented by 7 out of 7 minus the 4/7. So the fraction that is saved would be 3/7. So that's a fraction of her earnings that was saved. Now, they asked, what percentage of her monthly salary does she save? Right? So they just asked what percentage of the monthly salary. And they bold percentage to her. So they didn't ask you what was her value. They said what was the percentage. Right? So for this one, we want to know what is 3/7 as a percentage. So to change that to percent, to change a fraction to a percentage, we multiply by 100. I'm using my calculator, and for your paper too, you can as well. Just show them your steps that you are going to do. So it will be 3 divided by 7 times 100, and that would be 42.857. We never said how much to round it up to, so I'll round it up to 2 decimal places. 86%. Right? Because remember, the question, of course, if you round it up to 1 decimal place, and you put 42.9 instead of 2 decimal places, you could. All right, so take a look at 1B, part 2. You read the question carefully. It's a 2-mark question. The portion of your earnings spent on utility bills, food, and personal items is divided into the ratio of 5 to 3 to 4, respectively. Calculate the amount of money she spends on a personal item. All right, so it says the portion of her money that is spent, which was 4 sevens. Now, we could find out, because remember, they said calculate the amount of money. So we now have to figure out the amount of money that is being involved. So she spends, so we could say money spent the money spent was actually 4 sevens of her earnings. So 4 sevens of means to multiply. Her earnings would have been 8,316. So to find out how much money she actually spent, I'm using my calculator, and you can too. Paper 2, you could use a calculator. So I'm going to use 4 divided by 7 equals, and then multiply by the 8,316. And I got $4,751.9999. So I could round that up to $4,752. Right? So that's how much money was spent. And what they're telling us is that it was broken up into the ratio of 5 to 3 to 4, respectively. Whenever you see the word respectively, it means that it's in the order of how it was divided. So you see how they said utility bills first. Then it will be utility bills. Then they mention food second. Then they mention personal items third. Right? So when they give us a ratio like this, 5 to 3 to 4, the order in which they give the numbers, it's the same as the order in which they mention whatever items, people, whatever it is. So that means it's 5 to 3 to 4. Now, what the ratio is? The ratio is like a fraction, right? So we could treat ratios the same way that we treat fractions. Now, if anyone has trouble with ratios, what you can do is we can take a look at the ratios video that I did. And of course, if you're still lost by it, you let me know. That's like if you want to get it faster, right? Especially those who are doing the exam in Jan. If you want to get to certain topics faster than I may get it, you could take a look at those videos. Now, what this ratio is telling me is that it's giving me an idea as to how they are broken up. Now, when I find the total of the ratio, so it's like 5 plus 3, that's 8. 8 plus 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So when I add up all the numbers in the ratio, it gives me an idea as to how many equal parts they were broken up into. So what this is saying is that the money that was spent, which was $4,752, we broke it up into small, even values, right? So it's like, right? So it's like Maya calling your name here. So you'll know if you have to watch the video, you'll watch it up to here. Right? So good evening, Maya. Right. So it's like I took all the money and I divided it into smaller equal parts. But the problem is, I don't know how much in them equal parts. I don't know. But we do know that we had, let's say, had 12 bags. And in each of the 12 bags, you have an equal sum of money. We just don't know it until we can get some information to help us. So what this is saying is that those bags, the utility bills, were allocated 5 of those equal amounts of money. Food received 3. Personal items we received 4 of those. Right? So each one of those circles, they have an equal value of money. We just don't know how much it is as yet. So it's like the utility bills got 5 out of the 12. Food got 3 out of the 12 bags. Personal items got 4 out of the 12 equal bags. Now, what we need to do is whatever information they gave us, we have to use it to find out how much is in one. Right? In ratios, your goal is to figure out how much is in one of those equal parts or equal shares, and then we could find for however many. What information did they give us? We know that the money that was spent was broken into 12 parts. I'll use P for parts. However, we also know that the money that was spent on utility bills, food, and personal items was $4,752. Whatever information they give you, you're going to use it. And we're going to use it to find for one part. Now, you could use the carry across. So I could carry across this and once you cross, you do the opposite operation. Or you could look at it in the left-hand side, right-hand side. When it comes to ratios, I like the left-hand side, right-hand side rule, just to make it easy and understand. So I know that 12 parts is equal to 4,752. So if I want to find for one, I'm going to divide the left side by 12. And whatever I do to the left side, I must do to the right side because your equal sign is like a balance scale. So 12 divided by 12 will make it one part. And I'll also divide this side by 12. Use your calculator in your exam, right? Because they're not really testing whether we could divide or multiply at this stage. They are testing how well we are able to understand when to use it and how to use it. So I'm using my calculator. 4,752 divided by 12, and I got $396. So what happened here is that we figured out how much is in one of those little bags. Right? So let's just break down what happened. We know that all the money spent is 4,752. It was broken up in the ratio of 5 to 3 to 4. This ratio, it shows how smaller equal parts were divided. So we know that utility bills receive 5 of those equal amounts of money. Food received 3 and personal items received 4. We had to use the information that we know. We know that all the money was $4,752, and we broke it up into 12 equal parts. So we use that information to find out how much is in one of these parts. You always find for one, and then we could find for however many. So the question asked us to calculate the amount of money she spent on personal items. Now, personal items, we had 4 equal parts. So if I know that one part is $396, I could find for 4 parts. Whatever I did to one to make it 4, I also do it to the right-hand side. So in order to find for 4 of those equal shares, it will be 396 times 4. Use our calculator, of course. And I got $1,584 was spent on her personal items. All right, so let's take a look at 1B part 3. So it says it's a continuation from the last question. Miranda saves the same amount of money each month. Show that her annual savings from her earnings is 42,768. All right, so remember, just taking back a little from the question, because it's a continuation. The salary was $8,316. She spent 4 servants and she saved 3 servants. Right? So we know that with the fraction before. So she saved 3 servants of her salary each month. So we could figure out how much money was saved, which was 3 servants. Using a calculator, 3 divided by 7 times the $8,316. She saved $3,564 per month. They said show. Anytime they tell you to show something, it means that they gave you the answer, and all they want to know is if you know how they got it. Now, easy squeezy. If per month she saved $3,564, and they wanted for the annual savings, there are 12 months in the year. So if 1 month she saves 3,564, when I multiply by the 12 months in a year, you could use a calculator, and I got 42,768 as shown. Right? So in a question like this, they just want to see if you know how to work it out. So you let them know that every month she saved 3,564. You want to show this. And then the annual savings multiplied by 12. You just show it. Right? So you want to show these details. If you just put the answer back, you don't get enough because you didn't show it. All right, so she invests $42,768 in her credit union, which pays compound interest of 5% per annum. What is the total interest earned after 2 years? Now, basically, with questions like these, we have simple interest, and then there's compound interest. With compound interest, they could give us the formula as they did in this case. Right, so they could give us the formula, which they did. And if they gave us the formula, then it's going to be easy squeezy, just plotting in the values. So let's go with this one. Now, you're going to see A for amount, P for the principal. The principal is the amount of money. When they speak about principal in simple interest or compound interest, is the amount of money that is either deposited into the finance place or institute, or the amount of money that is borrowed, if it's in the case of borrowing. So the principal for this one, P, is 42,768. That's how much money she's putting into her credit union. So P would be 42,768. The rate, they told us the rate is 5%. So the principal is always the money. The rate is the percentage. Right? So that will be 5% per annum. N is going to be the number of years or the time. And remember, the time would always be in years. So if it's not in years, it means. Now, in order to find the final amount, they gave us the formula. Now, principal times 1 plus 5 over 100 to the power of 10. So basically going to plug in all of the values. The principal is 42,768. 1 plus 5%. Now, use a calculator if you want. Right, so we know that 5%, remember BODMAS, so we have to look what's in the bracket space. So 5% as a decimal is actually 0.05. So it'll be 1 plus 0.05, and 1 plus 0.05 would be 1.05 to the power of n, which is 2. So remember BODMAS. Yeah? Or in cases, remember I told you guys, in some texts they use PEMDAS. Right? So PEMDAS is the same thing, except with it, it actually breaks it down. So like P is for parentheses, which would be your brackets. E is the exponent. So we actually root exponents before we multiply. Right? So remember, we know it as BODMAS. However, if they give you a case where there's an exponent or powers or indices, we're going to root that first before we multiply. So 1.05 squared, we could use a calculator. So again, 1.05 first squared, you could put by 1.05 or use the square button, and I'll end up with bringing down the 42,768, so I don't forget it. And 1.05 squared will be 1.1025. Then I'm going to multiply it by the 42,768, and the amount is going to be $47,151.72. Right. So I'm being honest. Just now. Just double checking my answer. Actually squared it, I got this. And then 1.1025 times 42,768. Yeah, you guys could double check too. But I got $47,151.72. Right, you could double check with me. Right. So that's the amount. Yeah. So they said the final amount when the principal is given minus no, they ask us for the total interest after 2 years. Right? So the question was, what was the total interest? Now, let's clear up what does compound interest mean. If you put money into a bank to build interest, right? So there's simple interest whereby you are counting the interest after the full period of time. And then there's compound interest, where the interest is like broken up into parts. So like every year you're gonna find the interest, and then you're gonna like find the interest on that new amount. So it's like it's broken up over the period of the time frame that it's in. Over the period of time, your money is like it's going to build. It's going to increase at a particular rate. They will always give us the rate. So what happened in this question so far, we know that the amount of money that was put in was $42,768. And at the end of the 2 years, the amount of money she will be taking out or getting back is $47,151.72. Now, what they asked us was the total interest. So they want to know how much extra money or how much added money she would have received. So in order to find the interest, we're going to take the final amount and minus the principal. So that would be the $47,151.72 minus the principal, which was $42,768. I'll use my calculator. Right? And I got a difference of $4,383.72. So I got that as my interest. So you guys could always check it over, but that is going to be how much is the interest, because that's what they asked us for. How much is the interest on it? All right, so pause in here. All right, so for question 2, they gave us a factorization question. Now, anytime you are given the word factorize, we need to remember that it's either one of 4 types, right? So make sure that you're familiar with the 4 types of factorization, right? So the first one is by HCF, highest common factor. The second one is by factorizing by grouping. It's in no particular order. So factorize by grouping. The third one is quadratics. And then the last one is factorizing the difference between 2 squares. So difference between 2 squares. So when you see factorize, you know it's one of these 4. Now, make sure that we could understand which type to use. We know when we're factorizing by grouping, you must have 4 terms. So if you have 4 terms separated by either an addition or a subtraction sign, you know you're going to factorize by grouping. You know it's a quadratic if it's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And we know it's a difference between 2 squares if we have 1 square minus another square. And you know, once it's a difference between 2 squares, it takes the first term minus the second term, and then the first term add the second term. And if it's neither of those, by elimination, you'll know it's the HCF. All right. So let's take 2A part 1. For 2A part 1, they gave us xy squared minus x squared y. Now, you know for sure that's not a factorized by grouping. You know for sure that's not a quadratic. It's not a difference between two squares because everything will have to be squared, and not everything is squared. In this one, only the y is squared, and in this one, only the x is squared. Right? So it's by method of elimination, we know it's HCF factorization. Now remember, when we're factorizing by the highest common factor, you look at the numbers first. If there are numbers, you pull out the HCF of the number. There's no numbers in this. So we just understand it's 1. But we don't need to put the 1 because it's understood. We look at all the letters that you could see throughout. So in this one, I could see X in each term. So I'm going to pull out X, but I'm going to pull out the one with the lower power. So for this X, the power is 1. If there's no power, we understand it's 1. This one is X squared. So we're going to pull out the one with the lower power, which will be just X to the power of 1. But we don't have to put in 1 because it's understood. I have y's throughout, so I'm going to pull out the y with the lower power. This one has no power, so we understand it's to the power of 1. So we pull out xy. Then what we do is we divide each term by what we pulled out. So I'm going to divide xy squared by xy. The x will cancel with the x. For this part, it comes like saying y squared is y by y over y. So one of the y's will cancel with one of the y's, and we'll be left with y. So the remainder goes inside of the bracket. Minus x squared y divided by xy. X could go into x squared, x times y will cancel out with y. So it will be x remaining here. So you find what's the HCF, and then you divide each term by it, and the remainder goes in the bracket. All right. So next, we have 3x squared plus x minus 10. Now it's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So you know it's a quadratic. So we're going to follow quadratic factorization. Remember, you let us know what is a. So a is 3. The number in front of x squared is a. The number in front of x is b. We don't see any number in front of x, so we understand that b is 1. And c is negative 10. Now remember your steps when it comes to factorizing. Your first step is to multiply a times c. So when I multiply a times c, I will get 3 times negative 10 would be negative 30. So I multiply a times c and I got negative 30. And I want two numbers which when multiplied together will give me negative 30, and when added or subtracted will give me the value in front of x, which is b, and in this case is 1. So what you do is you look at all the ways you can multiply to get 30. So in order to get 30, I could multiply 1 times 30 in ascending order, and it will help you to get that. So you go through all. 2 times 15 will get me 30. 3 could go into 10 times. 4, no. But 5 can 6 times. And what you'll realize is after a while, you're going to see that all the factors, they will form a loop. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, 30 are all the factors of 30. Now they want to know which pair would also give me 1 if we add or subtract. So if I add or subtract 30 and 1, I would not get 1. I would not get 1 if I add or subtract 15 and 2. And 10 and 3, I will not get it. The only pair is with 5 and 6. Now you have to focus now on the signs. Right, so we're going to have to focus now on the signs now. Because remember, we want to multiply to get negative 30, which means with 5 and 6, one of the numbers will be negative. Because remember, when you're multiplying in order for it to be negative, one of the numbers have to be negative. But A is positive 1. Sorry, B, this is actually B. Right, but remember, I put A for add. But the value here is positive 1. So that means the bigger number had to be positive, and therefore the smaller number was negative. So those two numbers, we're going to use it to expand the middle term only. So the first term remains as is. The last term remains as is, sign inclusive. But the middle term, I'm going to break it up using these numbers. So we're going to take 1x and break it into 6x minus 5x. Right? So 6x minus 5x. So after that, you'll notice we have 4 terms. We're going to factorize by grouping. So you're going to pair up. We're going to look at the first pair, and we're going to factorize by HCF. So you're going to look at the numbers, pull out the HCF, which will be the highest common factor of 3 and 6, which will be 3. X squared and x, we have x throughout, so we're pulling out x, but you're pulling out the x with the lower power. Once you do, you're going to pull out whatever you pulled out, which is the HCF. You're going to divide each of those first two terms by 3x. So 3 will go into 3 once, x will go into x squared x times. Remainder goes inside. 3 could go into 6 twice. X will cancel with x. So we'll end up with plus 2. copy what's in the brackets and paste. Right, so we just finished quadratics and factorizing. So it's the same steps. Ask yourself, what would I multiply by out here by everything inside to give me back this? So if you look at the part of the x, it's negative 5x. And I have x here. So in order to make x negative 5x, I could multiply by negative 5. So negative 5, ix will give me negative 5x. And negative 5 times positive 2 will give me negative 10. Then we pull out one of the duplicated pairs, and everything else that is outside, we put them together inside of the brackets. So they gave us 4 to the power of n divided by 4 to the power of 3 is equal to 1 over 4. Now for this, we're going to have to do the laws of indices. Right, so we're going to be taking a look at the laws of indices. Now remember, when it comes to indices, we need to understand that this is known as your base. This number can be called the power or the exponent or the index. For plural, they call it indices. All right, so if I look at the left-hand side, we are dividing. And we're dividing bases which are the same. Anytime you're dividing and the bases are the same, what we do is we simply subtract the powers. That's the rule. Anytime the bases are the same and you're dividing, you're going to be subtracting the powers. So the base will remain the same, but we are going to subtract the powers. So we have power of n minus 3. Now, 1 over 4, anytime you have a number like this, where we could rewrite it as a base of 4, it's going to be to the negative power of 1. So this is actually the same as saying 4 to the power of negative 1. So a negative power means that it's the reciprocal of the base raised to the same power. So I could actually rewrite this as 4 to the negative 1. Once bases are the same and they are equal, once the bases are the same and they are equal, we could simply work the powers only. Right? So as the bases are the same, we could just focus on the powers or the exponents. So we're going to take them And then we could just simply solve for n the normal way. So we carry across. Once across, we do the opposite operation. So it becomes plus 3. 3 minus 1 would be positive 2. So I got n as positive 2.